Greetings, Kooplings! Donnie Reese here from PSVG with my review of The Lion Song, which is out today on Nintendo Switch for $9.99. The Lion Song is an episodic narrative adventure game, and the core of the gameplay centers around making choices for the various characters you control and how those choices impact and play out the storylines of other characters you encompass and encounter along the way. And there's some minor point-and-click mechanics that you'll use, to move around and to invade some items in your surroundings. The Lion Song is comprised of 4 chapters that are set in the 1920s in Vienna, which is in Austria, which is Eastern Europe, I believe, and on the brink of the First World War. And the first 3 episodes revolve around a specific character that are struggling to deal with their creative outlet or their talent, if you will. The first character, Wilma, is a musician and particularly a violinist. The second character, Franz, is an artist and a painter. And the third character is a mathematician who becomes a professor named Emma. The struggle of each character is unique to them in their own respective chapters, and they range from internal to external forces and a lot of themes that revolve around relationships, platonic and sexual, abuse, self-esteem and self-confidence, equality, and the social norms of the time, back in the 1920s. And needless to say, it's probably a game for adolescents and above, definitely teenagers to adults, probably more adult themes. I think adults will find more takeaways from this game than younger gamers, but to each their own. And it's a really rich, engrossing story. There were several points during my playthrough that a character or a moment or an interaction between multiple characters made me remember encounters that I've dealt with and stories that are, memories that I've had of my own with various relationships and things like that. And I think there'll be something like that for almost every gamer that plays The Lion Song, and I think in that regards it's pretty expertly written. I think everybody will come away with a favorite character, a favorite moment, maybe a favorite cutscene or a favorite conversation that they can latch onto because either it appeals to them or they knew somebody like that or something along those lines. And the story is actually very expertly written. Chapter 4, the final episode, actually stars a new cast of characters, and they all kind of revolve around the 3 characters that you played the first time, and they swap stories, and you get to see how it plays out. Trying my best not to spoil as much as possible, but it's a very nice conclusion to the story, and it kind of wraps everything up with a nice bow. One really neat aspect that I did enjoy while I was playing the game was encountering, historical figures, actually real-life characters. So like Sigmund Freud, Gustav Klimt, and Ludwig Wittgenstein. Not sure if I got that last one right. But as I was playing the game, I was wondering if maybe the stories being told were based on, real life, based on real stories. And from what I can tell, the characters are not. Those are all made up. But some of these historical characters that I just named along the way actually are. And looking them up on Wikipedia for this review and stuff, it was really cool. I got to learn something new, something about characters I really didn't know before. And I like when games do that. I think it's cool when games like Assassin's Creed or a military shooter or Civilization, anything like that, will take something out of history and kind of spin its own narrative around it. I don't know. I've always found it very interesting, and I've always liked it. Visually, The Lion Song does a lot with seemingly a little. It has this sepia-toned, monochromatic kind of NES style. The pixel art very much, and everything's just kind of red and black, and there's some beiges in there. And I really enjoy the way they use contrast between the different colors. I mentioned this in my playthrough, which is up today, by the way. If you'd like to watch the first episode, you can on our YouTube channel. That there's a part in the first chapter, which was my favorite, by the way, where you walk to a cabin and there's these storm clouds, and it's set against this white mountain backdrop, which is set on top of like this red forest, and of course the clouds are black, and it just really gives this brooding feel, like this sense like you're just like, oh man, something bad's about to happen. And it's cool that they did that with you know, little by today's comparisons, with all of the graphics and designs and styles that people deploy. Something like this to really grab a hold of you like that, or at least a hold of me like that, I was impressed. And another thing that I would like to say about the art style is, you know, by the time I got into the second chapter, I had almost kind of forgotten or not noticed, or, you know, like if you've ever watched a black and white TV show, or like when you watch a TV show that goes back in time with like some, you know, remember when moment, you see it, you see the style at first, and then like you kind of forget about it, you get lost into it, maybe even you start to see color where color isn't there. I felt that way with this game. There's a lot of detail in the art design, a lot of lines, and, you know, like chandeliers, the way light comes through the windows, the way the skies are presented. There's a really lovely scene in chapter 3 where you see a family in a field, and it's very nice, and the way that they contrast from chapter to chapter, from scene to scene, I think is very, very impressive. My final recommendation is a positive one. I really enjoyed this game a lot, actually. My first chapter, I think, was my favorite, as I already mentioned, and it was just the story, the music involved in the first chapter. Like, I just felt like it offered a lot, even though it was one of the shorter chapters. The story I personally connected to more than the other stories. And in chapter 3, for instance, I thought dragged on a little bit. It was a little long compared to the other two. Like, the other two stories were more tight. They kind of got in and out faster, with less, you know, sidebar stories and less dialogue. As the third chapter seemed to be somewhat inflated, in my opinion. And I was just, you know, by the end, I was just like, I wanted to get through it. Now, that didn't take away from the third chapter at all, because the ending of the third chapter, there's a good payoff there, you know, but there's just a lot more traveling from location to location. There's a lot more dialogue in the third chapter than compared to the other two. So if you're looking to buying this game, you know, make sure that you know that going into it, and make sure that you get through it. You know, press through. It's not a long game. I think I beat the game in 5 to 6 hours. Press through, because the final chapter, like I said, really ties everything up in a nice bow, and you're gonna want, you know, to get to that ending. So in short, if you know, we review things here at PSVG on a 100-point scale, and if I was to review this game, I'd give it a score of an 80. I think it is a good to great game. I think people that like Telltale games, or like a story, maybe you play games with your significant others, or maybe you just want to get a game done in a day or 2 days. You know, a lot of times, you know, there's something to be said for games that don't take you 100 hours to beat anymore. Maybe you just want to sit down and Sunday, you know, over coffee, and you want to play something new. Maybe give this game a chance, because the story, the art, and specifically the writing, I think, are all well worth it. It's really, really nice, and it's a good fit over there on Nintendo Switch. I haven't had any issues with the load times or any issues playing it. And before I let you go, I should also mention that the narrative, the decisions, just like in the Telltale games, you know, at the end of each chapter, they show you how you and others voted along the way, which is one really neat take that they do on it. Is at that point, you can actually, each decision is marked almost as a save state, and you can actually go back and change your decision without having to replay the chapter all over again. And you can check out the different outcomes and how the story changes based on those decisions. So there's a lot of replay value there. So with that, that concludes my review. And yeah, go check it out. The Lion Song over there on Nintendo Switch for $10 from Mapumi Games, out today. And hopefully, if you enjoyed this review, hopefully you'll give it a try. Thank you once again for checking out my review of The Lion Song for Nintendo Switch. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can, at PlayNintendo. If you'd like to follow the team on Twitter, you can, at PSVG. If you really like what we're doing with the YouTubes and reviews, check out our podcast, the PSVG Podcast Network, where we have shows dropping 3, 4, 5 times a week. And if you really like what we do, check out our blog, psvg.blog. Join the Discord. Click on the menu button. Join our Discord for more conversation. And we'd love to talk and interact with every one of you more. So once again, thank you very much.